Well, hello, I'm Greg Ayotte. I'm the Director of Consumer Services with the Brain Injury Association of America. And I'm here today with Carole Starr and Paul Bosworth, two members of the Brain Injury Association of America's Advisory Council. And we're here today to talk about how to take ownership of your recovery and be open to new therapies. First, I wanted to say a little bit about the Brain Injury Advisory Council. It's a group of survivors from across the country that work with BIA to meet the mission of the association. So they work to increase awareness and understanding about brain injury. And they do this through working together to create very helpful articles like the one that's in the challenge, which we'll be talking about, as well as to create videos like this, as well as other efforts they might do both with us and locally to increase awareness and understanding about brain injury. So the council created the article that's published in the issue of the challenge. Carole just very nicely showed, and it talks about tips and strategies to living life after brain injury. So I'll give Paul and Carole a moment to just introduce themselves. Paul, we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Paul Bosworth. I'm from South Louisiana. I had my brain injury September 11th, 2007, while living in Washington, D.C. area. Went through the rigors of the visit to the ER, and with my girlfriend and later myself realized that we don't know everything there is to know about brain injury. And I walked in to the ER one way and I walked out a completely different person. It took a matter of maybe an hour, hour and a half for some of my symptoms to kick in, and boy, did they kick in. Carole?
I'm Carole Starr, and I had a brain injury from a car accident back in 1999. I was 32 years old at the time, and my injury was considered, quote, mild. Oh, how I hate that word, mild, because as so many of us know, there's not necessarily anything mild about a mild traumatic brain injury. I have been living with this for nearly 23 years now, and I have symptoms every single day. It is an injury that changed my life forever. But it is a privilege to be able to be on the council and to use what I've learned in this long journey to help other people, to help other brain injury survivors.
Hear, hear.
Well, thank you both for being here today. And again, our topic of discussion today is how to take ownership of your recovery and be open to new therapies. So I'll start with asking Carole. So why is taking ownership of your recovery and being open to therapies important for brain injury survivors?
Well, I know that in my own journey, at the beginning, I just wanted somebody to give me a plan, somebody to tell me, if you see this doctor, this therapist, you're going to get back to normal. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. That, our healthcare system is fragmented. It seemed like I found people haphazardly, and there was nobody that was putting together a treatment team for me. That even though we are struggling with challenges, we still have to be willing to be open to trying something new. That our recovery doesn't end necessarily when our brain injury rehab ends. That a lot of times that ends before we're ready for it to end. But there are so many therapies out there, and it doesn't matter where we are in our journey, because progress can get made. I'm almost 23 years out, and I'm still making progress. So I think it's important to be open to say, well, what haven't I tried? What else is out there, to learn from others about different opportunities?
Excellent. And Paul?
For me, it was charging the hill. I was the king of the castle. I was the king of the top of the hill at one point. And when I had my brain injury, I fell all the way to the bottom. And I had a plan, and it included medicines, a lot of them. Boy, I couldn't count them all. And I realized that I would charge up the hill in seconds and then fall down on a daily basis. And I had to kind of take it apart. I had to take apart my days. I had to take apart the minutes almost, and realized that what I was putting in my mouth made every bit of a difference in my system on the whole. And now I'm talking about months here, parsing this out for months. And I agree with Carole. I've been at this for close to 15 years and I'm still learning. But as I learn, I'm sharing with the next person. I'm giving this away. We're giving this away for all intents and purposes for a better brain. So once I realized that chocolate and alcohol were really affecting my brain and giving me migraines, and I was going to tizzies for weeks on end, oh, maybe I should cut out that and then go on to the next one. So incremental steps got me, I'm not to the top of the mountain yet, but I can see it for sure.
Excellent.
I still like my chocolate.
I'm not saying, it's a complete yes or no, but chocolate every once in a while is nice. Chocolate on a daily basis is something completely different.
Yes, it is about learning about our own systems, learning about our brain injuries. I think that is a big part of the journey, isn't it? Is getting to know ourselves, our symptoms, what works and what doesn't work for us.
For me, it was a whole set of circumstances.
Yeah. You become much more, right? You become much more aware of all the things that impact your cognition and thinking and mood and energy level and all the things we kind of knew about, but never really had to pay attention to. Now you have to really become a little bit of a scientist, right? Okay, what happens when I do this? What happens when I do this?
Right, because the impact can be really quite dramatic.
Yes, both good and bad, right? So that both, not just the things that kind of drag us down, but things like, oh boy, if I eat healthy for a few days, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
And to use a buzzword, we don't have a filter, so we get to learn real fast.
So that kind of blends nicely into the next question, which is, how has this concept, this idea, helped you kind of in your recovery as a survivor? So how has this idea kind of helped the journey? I'll start with Paul.
Well, I came up with a theory called the bucket theory. And if I want to go somewhere, or if I want to do something around noise or people or both, I have to check my sleep bucket, make sure it's full, check my water bucket, make sure that's full, empty my noise bucket using meditation, make sure that I have protein in my body. Again, through my mouth, I'm going to eat protein. I'm going to rest up for several hours before this event. I'm not going to go charging in the event after 6 hours of doing, daily stuff. I'm going to pause, save up that energy, save up that bundle of energy, and then try my best to stay as long as I can. The bucket theory bails me out because I can see it. I'm an IT guy, so I have to kind of see that structure. And that in and of itself can be teased out later, but it's what I carry with me on a daily basis to manage what I've got going on in my body, starting from the head to my toe.
So you've identified the important buckets and said, all right, I gotta watch these to be able to figure out what the day is going to be and how to manage that.
Correct.
That's a good idea. And Carole?
I think that one thing that's helped me about being able to find different ways of doing things, to be open to new ways of doing things, is to know that I don't have to figure it out all at once. That, in the beginning, I think I said, I wanted the plan, I wanted, somebody to tell me, here's everything that I had to do. But I've learned that it's okay to take our time, because if we overload our brains, like Paul was saying with the bucket, when we overload our brains, it sets us back. So we try these things kind of one small step at a time. We assess, well, did this work? Did this not work? And if it doesn't work, we try something different. There is so much trial and error in this. And I don't think anybody can tell us, well, if you tried this therapy, it's going to absolutely work for you. I had so many people who said, this is what's going to cure your brain injury. It never seemed to work that way. I mean, I've had a lot of things I've tried that have helped, but there's nothing that's going to get me back to who I was on July 5th, 1999, the day before my accident. But there are a lot of things that have helped me to make small bits of progress, and that I will believe to my dying day that I can always make progress, that I can always become a better version of this Carole that I am now. It's no longer about getting back to who I was. It's about being open to a different way to become more of who I am now.
Excellent.
Very well said.
Yes. All right. So I'll stick with Carole and I'll ask my last question. What's one piece of advice you would give to another person with a brain injury just kind of starting out their journey?
I think being gentle with oneself, knowing that this is going to be a long journey, and that knowing that, like I was just saying, that progress, it is going to happen. It's never going to be the straight line, or this that you want it to be, that the road is going to be up and down. And that's part of the brain injury journey, that you're going to do things, it's going to go well. Then the next day you're going to try the same thing. It doesn't go so well, but that doesn't mean that you still don't try different approaches, different therapies, because the overall progress is still moving forward, even if the road to get there is full of twists and turns and ups and downs. And being able to talk to other people who have been on the road, other brain injury survivors, is so very helpful, because unless you've lived this, it's next to impossible to understand. So the more that we can, as survivors, talk to one another, I think the more we can help each other on our journeys. That might have been more than one piece of advice.
And Paul?
You're not alone.
Hmm.
That's the first thing I tell people. We do a Better Brain Expo, and there's 28 different modalities there that most of us have never heard of. And first of all, I would tell them you're not alone. And when half the time when I tell somebody that, tears come to their eyes, because they really needed to hear that. They really needed to hear that it's not all in our head. Some of it is, but also some of it can be ours for the taking. Research was my best friend. Researching some of the modalities that are out there, oxygen therapy, plant therapy, craniosacral therapy, stuff that I had to look up. And that brought function back. And the doctors, kind of scratching their head like, that's so interesting. I'm like, how did I get interesting? I'm just a guy with a brain injury. How did I get to be, I want to have lunch with you, Paul. It's breaking it down into small pieces. But like Carole said, appreciate the little wins. It could be 5 minutes that you felt normal. Rejoice in that 5 minutes. Be happy in that 5 minutes. You had that 5 minutes. For me, getting angry was a daily basis. I'll never forget when I had a beer after my brain injury, and I got so angry because I couldn't think straight. Who hasn't been able to not think straight? I took apart a toaster with my hands. Boy, I cut everything up. But I called my friend, and she said, "You're not alone. You're not doing this by yourself. There are others out there, and there's social media out there that is present. Be cautioned, not every advice is good advice, but limiting my intake on sugars, limiting my intake on caffeine. I meet somebody with a brain injury, I'm going to find someone with an iced tea in their hand, or something loaded with caffeine, because we want to stay up. But back that up with some water, plain old water. That's what most of our brain is made up of anyway. Replenish it, fill the water bucket for your brain. And no, not every brain's the same. All of them are different, all of them. So, you've got BIAA here, Brain Injury Association of America here. You've got national advisory. You've got all kinds of letters on Capitol Hill, but those trickle down. Those are information sources. Brainline.org is another one. That was real helpful for me, because I could find a support group in my area. What? I can do that? It's that easy? So it's a matter of, and I repeat to the person after I tell them these things, don't get angry. Avoid getting angry. Avoid getting into the rut that will push you back into the doctor's office, and they're just going to say, well, cut it out. Do adhere to meditation, appreciation, being thankful. And no, life sucks as a brain injury survivor, but if you look at it right, it can get better. Look at Carole and I.
Also, more than one piece of advice, but all good. I mean, they're all important, but I think that's kind of the crux of it, is right, that it's not one thing, right? As both of you have said, it's not one, it's going to be little things you find in your journey as you will try, and you'll figure out what's helpful. And right, you talk to people, you gather info, you try things, you learn from the failures, you learn what helps, and you start to slowly kind of piece together a path of recovery that works for you.
Right. The one thing that started me on this path was music. I like the music. The music made me feel better. I was good for that hour. Let's see what else we can find. The music's good as long as you like the music.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Well, I thank you guys both for coming and sharing a little bit about your journey, your expertise, and your wisdom. I'd encourage folks, if you're looking for information or resources, you're more than welcome to contact us at the Brain Injury Association of America. I'd encourage you to read the challenge, read the article with other practical tips, look at the other videos that are available, and build your own journey. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.